Listening to the Brian Brawdy Show. It's time to mortal up.
Welcome to the show dedicated to you. And while malicious forces are certainly counting on your collapse, we're here to bring the counterpunch, ready to stand in the way of anyone and anything standing in the way of you. So let them bring their disinformation campaign. You and I are going to kick in some doors and mortal up. Good evening. Welcome to Take Two. Right, into every life a little glitch must fall. But Take Two of the 500 episode. And you know how I believe that everything happens for a reason. We talked yesterday about the 500th episode, and Wayne pointed out, thankfully to me, because I would have forgotten, that the 500th episode coincided with my 4-year anniversary of the beginning of my brain surgery. But now, Take Two, the second day, deux, trois, on deux, right? Cultural appropriation there. On day 2, I will have just finished up 4 years ago today. About this hour, I will have finished up the first surgery of a total of 5 to come. The first surgery was 11 and a half hours. And I'm looking forward to jumping into that and telling you a little bit about it. But I want to say hello to everyone. Welcome to the Brian Brawdy Show. Robert, thank you for joining us. Already in the feed over on Facebook. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone joining us on YouTube. And don't forget, you can leave your comments right here. Starting next week, we're going to have it set up so that you'll be able to call in, or you'll be able to text in, or you'll be able, just like Karen is in this evening. Karen, good evening. Nice to see you. Thanks so much, along with Sarah. Thank you for joining us. So let's get to this, and I have, again, a special guest. Anyone that's watching yesterday will know who the special guest is. But in just a minute, I want to tell you this quick little story because it's always stuck with me. You ever hear the saying, well, what are you, a rocket scientist? What are you, a brain surgeon? So 4 years ago tonight, along about this time, after being in surgery for the opening 11 and a half hours, God love her, my wife Ashley is a little panicked. She's like, well, they rolled him in there hours and hours and hours ago, and I've been sitting here, and I don't know what's going on, and blah, 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 blah. So when the doctor finally comes out, and she says to him, it's been 11 and a half hours. What took so long? And what I love about the surgeon, even though, in all fairness, he missed the leak, right, which led to the following 4 years, even though he missed the leak, I still love the guy because his answer to Ashley, look straight. She goes, what took so long? He looks straight at her. And as she tells me, he says, it's brain surgery, right? So apparently the first 10 hours was positioning me, the first 9 hours, whatever it is, was positioning me in my little metal halo so that they could find the exact position to go ahead and pull and start on the tumor. So, but in any event, I've always kind of chuckled at that when I've heard his response to her was, well, it's brain surgery. All right, let me say hello to Brian. Brian, thank you much. Miss Putnam, thank you for joining us as well. Super appreciate it. Ronald is here. And I should say, Brian, thanks for all the suggestions and the offers to help. I super appreciate it. Let me also say hello to Hector. Thank you for joining us on the 500th episode. We were just going a little bit over why it's the 4-year anniversary of the first of my 5 brain surgeries. All right, so I want to jump right to it. As most of you all know, not a whole lot of this would be going on if it weren't for a lot of the technical support that I get from back in the studio, the Counterpunch studios. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Wayne to jump in. Wayne, I'm assuming since I don't hear, I don't see any comments. Anyone's going, echo, echo, echo. I think we finally nailed it. Here, yodelay, hee-hoo. I would imagine we're not having any echoing, so we're getting it going just right. How are you, sir?
Hanging in there. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. We should tell people that you're in a totally different state. And the studio is set up so that what we're trying to figure out is how to get the signal back there, have Wayne as the executive producer, get everything ready to then put it out onto another signal that sends it out all over the place. Soon to Twitter, IPM Nation, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, if we ever decide to do that. So Wayne is at the command center, if you will, takes the signal, goes back to him, and he works his magic. And as Sarah says, tech is great today. Well, Sarah, I'll let that compliment go to Wayne because he handles all the technical stuff. So Wayne, everyone's saying it's looking pretty good. You need some more computers, Brian says. Wayne, well, Wayne, why don't you? I don't know if you can tell, but two of those are Wirecast themselves. Some of the other ones are being able to check the signals to the other places we're going. Well, why don't you give us a quick rundown of what you got in the studio there?
Well, over here, on these computers, you really can't even see them right now. That's the Wirecast box that does the broadcasting.
Okay.
Out to Facebook, YouTube. It also brings Brian in from Ohio to Michigan, and then I broadcast it out. Then over here is where I do all my video editing, audio editing, all my graphics.
All right.
So it's actually only two computers.
Two computers, just extra monitors. I guess maybe that's what... yeah, lots of monitors. Let me say hello to Marie. Marie, thank you very much for joining us. So I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this. And I guess there's going to be the technical aspect as to what we hope to achieve. But then the more personal aspect is that I remember one of the nurses at the surgery going, yeah, it'll be 4 or 5 years before you're back on your feet, before you're feeling like you're operating, operating normally, back on all cylinders. And I've always thought to myself, well, how would she know if my abnormal wasn't better than my normal? But in any event, we've kind of structured this because they don't let me go a lot of places. They don't let me go very far. When we talk about the transglobal amnesia, it's still funny to me. I have to tell you that scary to the people around me, I imagine. But in those times where I've just totally lost any ability to remember who I am or where I am or what's going on around me, and keep a pretty tight leash. So what we thought was, wow, now with more head scars than most Vikings, with all the staple marks, all the different things that come out of, golly, 5 brain surgeries, 1, 2, 3 cancer surgeries. Oh, and a hair lip. As I say, I have more head scars than most Vikings. So the best way to do this was to structure a show. If you've heard me talk about it in other episodes leading up to this one, I wasn't, for the long time, I wasn't allowed to fly, wasn't allowed to drive a car, wasn't allowed to lift more than a gallon of milk. Thank God they got rid of that one. I wasn't allowed to do all these other things. But the one thing they allowed me to do, the one thing that there was no prohibition against, were power tools. So I spent my time, I went over to Home Depot, learned everything I could about framing a room, building a room, and I built a sound studio right here in my home. Let me say hello to Judy very quickly. Judy, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us. I built a sound studio right here in my home after many trips to Home Depot and the Pro Desk. Not for me being the pro, but for the good people there at Home Depot teaching me how to use the tools and do the math and everything else. So we built our own little recording studio, got all the high fiber internet hooked up and everything else so that Wayne can be where he is. I can be here in beautiful Columbus, Ohio, and we can work to bring you the show. So now, the show. Wayne, let's talk about this a little bit because Lowlife's making headlines. I probably get more texts about Lowlife's making headlines than any other communication that comes to me through the day. And then the second most, believe it or not, is Mortal Up. People want to feel a sense of community. With all the disparity, with all the disgruntled people running around, with all the browbeating, with everything going on, people just want to find a sense of connection, and we hope we're able to do that for sure. But also, Lowlife's making headlines, Wayne. Why don't you give us a little bit of insight as to how that got started and some of the comments that we get throughout the day?
Well, I believe the Lowlife's making headlines got it started basically when the Chicago mayor had her first oops. And I think that's when we started it. And then I'll call Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. We went after her. And basically, it's just something we're having fun with.
And let me just say that the Lowlife's Making Headlines we also have a segment called Wing Sauce. We have a segment called Woke, Spoke, and Choke. We have a segment called Media Mania. If you go over to mortalup.com, you'll see all the different segments. But what we always fall back on in Lowlife's Making Headlines is, I know it sounds hard to believe. Let me first say hello to Sheila. Sheila, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all the encouragement all these years. I super appreciate it. Lowlife's Making Headlines came about because at the bottom line of everything we do at the Brian Brawdy Show, from Mortal Up to all of it, is that we're not fans of people that water down human wherewithal. We're not fans. Good evening, Shane. Nice to see you pop up. We're not fans of anyone that stands, as we say in the opening, we'll stand in the way of anyone that stands in the way of you. And it just so happens that politicians seem to be pretty easy to pick on now. If you're a mayor of a city, it seems endemic. If you're the Speaker of the House and you're telling everyone else they should lock down, probably a good idea to not go out, get your hair done without wearing a mask. So for us, we wrote Wing Sauce, right? Whether it's left wing or right wing, you still got yourself a chicken. It just seems that politicians and celebrities of other ilks are just really easy to pick on when it comes to identifying Lowlife's Making Headlines. So, Wayne, you're right. We really weren't targeting anyone. We didn't choose them. It's their actions that just make it easy. The show really does, Wayne, write itself, as you know, every day.
Yeah, I mean, we pull up the news. These people make sure they throw it at our face, and we say, oh, we've got a good one for today.
We got a good one.
But starting next week, we'll be doing some polls.
Oh, great.
Out on the show and on the mortalup.com website. And one of the polls we'll be doing each week is for people to nominate
great
someone who they feel should be making the Brian Brawdy Show's Lowlife Making Headlines.
And this was your idea, and I thought it was a great one. We just don't make this stuff up and then put it out on the air. Brian asks, Wayne, are you on the Matt Connerton Unleashed show? Wayne's on that show. I mean, I think at least he texts in. I don't know if he really calls in. But, Brian, before Wayne answers, let me tell you a little bit about Matt Connerton. 500 B episodes, last night's episode. And thank you all for anyone that's come back. Thank you so much for joining us tonight after the glitches. Wayne and I both kind of just threw our hands up and go, oh, let's just blame it on the weather. And then we looked outside. It wasn't a cloud in the sky. So we were like, oh, well, we better admit it. It was our screw up.
Software upgrade.
Software upgrade. That was it. So, Bri, and everyone listening, everyone joining us, let me tell you about Matt Connerton. What a great guy. And although Matt and I can disagree from time to time, I will tell you, and as I've said to Matt in person, and I've said it, I think, on the air, you'll never get me to say anything bad about Matt Connerton and Jenny and all the folks at IPMNation.com, because 500 episodes ago, believe it or not, at my conversation, Jenny said, hey, did you ever think of being on radio? And I said, well, I am now. I'm thinking about it, Jenny. Thank you very much. And she says, well, let me get you hooked up with Matt. We can talk and see where it goes. So I remember saying to Matt Connerton, Matt, what time slot are you looking at? And he goes, well, we think your show's going to be this and that. And so we're thinking about this time slot. And I go, well, if you would, Matt, I'd like the worst time slot available, right? Because it's my goal to make this show number one. And he kind of chuckled, as well he should, right? I had never done this before. He kind of chuckled, and I said, well, that's exactly the reason. If you give me a cherry time slot, let me say good evening to Kelly. Kelly, I'm miss seeing your smile. I hope all is well with you and your sons. I don't even know what's going on in baseball anymore. I hope everything's going well with you and your fam, as always. So I said to Matt, I want the worst time slot available. And he goes, what is wrong with you? I'm sure he looked over at Jenny Wayne and said, who did you arrange this call with? This guy's insane. But here's my rationale. I wanted the worst time slot available because if I were able to get to number one, I didn't want anyone able to say, well, you got to number one because they gave you Monday through Friday drive time. And at the time, I didn't even know, Bri, if Monday through Friday drive time was a good time. I knew nothing about radio. So I said to him, I want the worst time slot available. He goes, great, 6 a.m., Monday through Friday. Oh, 6 a.m. in the morning? And he goes, yeah, Bri, that's what AM means here in the radio land. AM means morning. You got to be here at 6 in the morning. And this was back in the day where we got up and drove to downtown Aurora and had a studio in downtown Aurora. So I'd get up 3:30, 4 o'clock. Number of times I got stopped by the police heading in because they're like, who in their right mind would be heading into Aurora at 4:30 in the morning? Unless you're baking bread. If you work at a bakery, I guess you're heading in at that time of day. But in any event, I would get up and go in, and soon we were fortunate enough to have the number one show on IPMNation.com, and I owe that to Matt. I really do. I'm not just saying that. I don't even know if he's listening. Even if he isn't listening, Bri, I owe that to him because he was the one, and continues to be the one, that if we have any question, if we wonder what's going on, if you're like, oh, how do we do this? How do we do that? Matt's the first one I call, and he's always very gracious, and he's always very helpful. So when you mentioned his name, I probably went on longer than I should have there, but that was my first interaction with Matt, giving me a time slot that nobody else wanted, and said, all right, Junior, have at it. Do what you're going to do. And Wayne, so that was Low Life's Making Headlines. Tell us a little bit about Media Mania. I know that's another fun one that you like. Or what else do we got? Oh, Facts Lives Matter. That's another popular one. I get a lot of emails about. Wayne, what do you think of that?
Good old Media Matters.
Brian says he wonders if it's the same Wayne. It is. I believe it's the same. I can't imagine there's two of them. I believe that's right. Shane 0600. Yepers, it sure is. Wayne says he's the one that's there. So when we talk about Media Matters, Media Mania for us, and again, it's not like, I want to just say this real quickly. We don't paint with a very broad brush here. We say hello to Sean. Sean, thank you for joining us here in the feed of the Brian Brawdy Show. We don't paint with a very broad brush. So we're not likely on the Brian Brawdy Show to go all police, all teachers, all doctors, all radio personalities, all this, all that. We don't paint with a very broad brush and go, okay, great, all media is bad. I don't believe that. I have very dear, some of my closest friends in the world are in broadcast television. I work for CBS. Probably shouldn't say, they don't probably want to admit it, but I worked for a major owned and operated television station as a morning show reporter. So I have dear friends that are still in television, morning anchors at the national level that are still in television, reporters at the national level. So just like police officers, just like teachers, just like doctors, there's some great ones and there's some not so great ones. So we're going to call out the not so great ones. When they make a mistake, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and blame everyone in the profession. We're going to hold the guys and girls, don't want to mansplain, the guys and girls that make the mistakes, we're going to hold their feet to the fire. So that when we say, oh, well, everybody in a particular profession is responsible for this or that, we just don't believe that at the Brian Brawdy Show. So Media Mania, are we picking on every media person? Yeah, just like it's not a blanket statement about everyone in the medical profession or the educational profession. There's some great teachers. Now, I will tell you that if we were going, Wayne, tonight to pick a Low Life's Making Headlines, and I'm just going to do this, right? I don't even have the professor's name, so it's probably a good thing. I can't get in that much trouble if that's the case. But this teacher, they came out and said, well, I understand why they shot and killed the one protester wherever it was. And I'm sorry I don't have some of the names, but I'm thinking to myself, hey, if you're actively rooting for the death of another human being, it may be time to take a step back, take a deep breath and go, look, we're all in this together. There's no reason to actively root for another person's homicide. Good evening, Paula. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us here at the Brian Brawdy Show. Let's see. Brian says, Brian Brawdy, pick one of these now that you have the mic right. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it. And let me say to other people, because this is new to me, Brian sent me, what was it, like a text or a message the other day and said, oh, you got to make sure that the microphone is at this angle. And then, but here's the thing, this pop filter, I'm still learning, Bri, how to use all this. So I'm hoping I won't look at it now, I won't look at it now, but I'm hoping it's a pop filter for something like this. So thank you very much, as always, for keeping me in the loop. And I remember one time one of Matt Connerton's friends texted in or commented here in the thread and just said, the DBX 286X or S, that's all I'm going to say. So back in the beginning, Bri, we didn't even know about that type of technology in terms of getting the signal out. So thank you as always. And if it's not what the link is about, Bri, just between you and me, I could use a small little, like a $50 size pop filter if you happen to know where one of those is. All right, so Wayne, we're talking about Media Mania. We're talking about Woke, Spoke, and Choke. We're talking about Facts Lives Matter. That's probably pretty much the ex-cop in me just going, wait, let's wait and get all the facts. Let's figure out what's going on, and then let's come to a conclusion. What else am I forgetting about before we get on to Mortal Up here in the closing 10 minutes?
Probably a lot.
We're missing a lot. Let me say hello quickly to Gene. Gene, thank you so very much. Brian says, Wayne, stop pressing the buttons. Oh, that pop filter is just fine. Well, thank you, Brian. See, now I know. I don't have to worry about this thing. Although I could just wear a mask. I could go, yeah, I'll do the whole show in a mask. That other way I don't have to worry about a pop filter. So thank you very much. Brian says the DBX 286 is a must-have. We absolutely have come to love it, Brian. Thank you very much. All right, Wayne, a little bit about mortalup.com. And can you bring everybody up to speed? Where are we on the registered trademark? How's all that going? And where are we? With just all things. I wanted to bring the coasters. We got the coasters. We got the T-shirts at mortalup.com. How are we looking on the registered trademark?
The registered trademark right now is still in process. It's about ready to be turned over to the lawyers at the end of the month.
Well, what could possibly go wrong with that?
Government lawyers.
Turned over to the lawyers at the end of the month. Nothing that could go wrong with that, I'm thinking. All right, so Mortal Up, the concept is that we believe wholeheartedly that if you're here, you have a reservoir of natural resources. You have your authentic vigor. You have your grit. You have the ability to pretty much square your shoulders and rise to any challenge. And that's what Mortal Up is about. And we get a lot of email, a lot of text, even on Spitter. Let me say hi to Lori. Lori, thank you so very much for joining us. We get a lot of information about people going, look, I just want to tap into the very best that I have to offer. I want to figure out that way of being able to control my own destiny. What do I got to do to be successful? What do I got to do to be happy? What do I have to do to be grounded and be focused? And it's been my opinion since day one of All Natural Being and now Mortal Up and the Brian Brawdy Show is that you pretty much possess, well, let me put it this way. Everything you've ever needed, you've always had. Now it's just time to hone those skills. It's time to maybe wake them up a little bit. Maybe there's some atrophy involved, just like a muscle. If you're a skier and you break a leg skiing, that muscle's going to atrophy. I'm simply asking, is it possible as a human being, anybody listening, myself included, are there times where the very best parts of us atrophy because we don't use them? Steven Pinker calls them the order of our higher angels. Is there a better you waiting to be unleashed? Quoting Matt Connerton, is there a better you waiting to be unbridled? Is there a better you waiting to be unchained so that you can face whatever fate throws at you, right? When we call it the labyrinth of life, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the pivots, the swerves, the cul-de-sacs, but never a dead end. In the labyrinth of life, when you bring the very best parts of yourself, is there really anything that can derail you? And that's what we love to focus on with Mortal Up. What is it that's going to allow you to bring the very best parts of you front and center in your life so that you can achieve pretty much anything you want, even if there's all kinds of hurdles. We have an email from a viewer that's been in prison for a while. This person's going to come on and go, hey, great, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what it was like in the lowest parts of my life, and then what it was like when I was able to get out, I was able to get paroled, and I was able to turn my life around. Well, that's an example. That's a story of Mortal Up. We're looking forward to that. We have a nationally known published author who's going to be coming on to be able to talk to us in case there's authors that are one day hope to be authors. What does it take? What do you need? In addition to just the chutzpah, if you will, the chutzpah of sitting down and doing the writing that it requires in order to get a book deal, to have your book on Kindle and Audible and the like. So there's an example of Mortal Up. Wayne, can you think of some others, different types of folks that we'd want to have on the show? And I should say, anyone here in the thread, if you want to come on the show, we'd love to have you, especially not just when Wayne gets the polls and everything else set up, but also if you want to vote for Low Life's Making Headlines, if you want to vote in any of these categories, or you go, hey, I've got a story about Mortal Up where the human being is absolutely brought its best. We want to hear about it. Wayne, what else you got?
And we'll be providing space on the website to do that. Be ready. It'll be out there actually on Monday. Monday, we have a lot of things starting up. The polls. I believe the phone lines are going to be opening up starting for Monday night's show.
Very nice. I also, Wayne, let me just say to Shane, I got to say I miss it too with the gong and everything else in the background. It's just that... You want to be honest? I'll tell you, Shane, when I built this booth, I just didn't leave enough room for the gong. So Wayne's all the time like, why don't we put the gong behind you? Because then it looked like there's a big flying disc behind me. But maybe we can work on that still. But I do miss those days as well. It's not too long ago that we did the, what did we do? The 24-hour marathon and all the rest of that. And that was pre-shunt, final shunt tumor, Shane. So I really do miss all that.
So, but what the reality is Brian misses being a police officer, so he puts himself into a little cubicle smaller than a cell, a jail cell.
Yes. Well, I'm not that, most days, as the people on the thread will tell you, if you've known me at all, I'm not that far from a padded cell. So I've just constructed my own portable, not even portable, but my own like phone booth size padded cell, Shane. That's why we don't have it. But we're thinking about a green screen. Maybe sometime we can put the gong behind us. So we're working on it all the time. So thank you, Shane. That absolutely helped me. Just helps me to think back to a time that I was having a blast, even though I don't remember a lot of those days. There's a definite roadblock in my brain as to some of those points. It was a highlight for sure. Let me say hello to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you so much for watching. With that, Mike and the DBX, you don't need the booth. Just saying. Thank you, Brian. Whoa, here's a little confession. I got to tell everybody listening, I kind of dig the booth because it's my own little way of escaping. What are you going to do? Got to go to work. What are you going to record? Oh, I got some voiceovers. How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? So it's a little bit of, it's my own version of a man cave, if I can be so sexist. So there we go. All right, Wayne, we're going to go ahead. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the 500th B episode of the Brian Brawdy Show? Anything else we can look forward to next week before we head to the close?
I don't know. Right now, I'm kind of brain dead after yesterday and today.
All right. Well, let me just thank everyone for being involved. Also mention one more time, if I haven't, please head over to mortalup.com. If you get a chance, you'll see all the polls that are going to be put up. You'll be able to watch the video library, listen to the audio library. We're still on iHeart and IPM and Apple and Spotify and all the other places that you normally get your podcast, right? Even though this is live, it's technically a live podcast, but if you want to listen to the podcast version of it, you certainly can. Sarah, thank you so much for the congratulations. I appreciate it. You're doing great work, Wayne. Yes, he is. That's not a cave. It's a coffin. I don't mind, Brian. I got to tell you, I don't mind, but it is. Yeah, right. It's my own little coffin. All right. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you all so very much. Don't forget to reach out, mortalup.com. Let us know what you're thinking. Check out some of the different things we have to offer. And we'll look forward to seeing you, if not tomorrow night for the 501st episode, September 11th. It may be tomorrow night, or it may be that we kick off 501 with the full week starting Monday, but we'll most certainly post on social media and let you know. Thank you all so very much for hanging with us. Thank you for all the different suggestions and the critiques. And if I don't speak to you tomorrow, have an absolutely fantastic weekend. Wayne?
Thanks for listening to the Brian Brawdy Show. Until next time, get out there and mortal up.